We're rolling?
Yeah.
All right. So here we are in a park. That's what I call it anyways, in Coquitlam. The more parkish where I come from, but I guess for a city, sure. Great place for blackberries. There's lots of them. But from this park, I'm going to talk to you with the first of a series that I intend to follow through on. There was some lukewarm reception to, there was some not so lukewarm reception to, but I'm going to do it. The 1981 Minnesota North Stars, because the first year that I watched the Stanley Cup Final, the North Stars were the team I was cheering for. They were a team in green. North Stars. Sounded great. A lot of young players. So rather than having the board behind me today, or rather than being indoors, I'm outdoors. Just to prove I can be outdoors.
Crazy.
The Minnesota North Stars, and I've got a camera person today. As opposed to,
High class.
as opposed to normally where it's just me, I've got a camera person today. She's the producer, so she might as well do camera work too and get multiple credits. So 1981, the Minnesota North Stars had 87 points. They finished third in the Adams division because divisions at that point had less to do with geography and more to do with just craziness. And of course, you had the 1 versus 16 format, so it was all that crossover everybody wants to see. Yeah, in the first round, they had to play Boston. They swept Boston in 3 games. This is before the best of 7 setup. Then they beat Buffalo in 5 games, 4 games to 1. Then they beat Calgary in the semifinals, 4 games to 2. And that was a battle between 2 young, talented teams who both kind of overachieved to get there. The Islanders in the final, they lost the first 2 games 6-3. Then they lost the third game 7-5. They won game 4, 4-2, and they lost game 5, 5-1. So the Islanders get that Stanley Cup, but Minnesota's worth looking at, and that's why I want to do this series. Because in the regular season, Bobby Smith was their leading scorer with 93 points. He's one of those overlooked, forgotten guys from the 80s that I talk about. Tim Young had 66 points. I like Tim Young. Al McAdam, 60 points. Epic mustache on Al McAdam. Steve Payne with 58. Tom McCarthy, 48 points. And Craig Hartsburg at 43. And there was a rookie named Dino Ciccarelli who played 38 games, so he wasn't going to win a Calder. Had 18 goals and 30 points. And of course, because he played that many games that first season, he wasn't eligible for the Calder the year after. So stop talking to me about Jesse Puljujarvi, please. All right, in the playoffs, Steve Payne led the way with 29 points in 19 games. He had 17 goals. So again, this is why when a guy scores a lot of points in the playoffs, they go, or he scores a lot of points in a month and a half after joining a team, I kind of shrug because I want to see it along a longer timeline. Payne with 29 points in 19 games looked like he was going to be a superstar. Now imagine, in today's day and age, as a young kid, 29 points, gets his team to the final, 17 goals. How many points is he going to get? Or how many dollars is he going to get in terms of a contract the year after? How much is that worth? How much of a ripoff would that have been to Minnesota 2-3 years down the road when Steve Payne wasn't that player? Bobby Smith, 25 points. Dino Ciccarelli, 14 goals. A rookie record that stood up till this year. Now Jake Gensel joins him. I don't think Gensel got that 15th. I think they're both at 14. I didn't check that before doing this. Al McAdam, 19 points. Tim Young, 17 points. Steve Kristoff, another guy who played better in the playoffs than the regular season, 16 points in 19 games. And Craig Hartsburg with 15 points. So why start with this team? Well, first off, you had Neil Broughton, who I didn't mention yet because he wasn't a key player yet. He only played three games in the regular season, and his rookie year would be the year after. Dino Ciccarelli, Brad Maxwell was one of my favorite players on this team as well. And Steve Kristoff, Bobby Smith, and Steve Payne, goaltenders. Minnesota was the first team that I can remember that I liked both goalies. And they were Joe Meloche, the grizzled veteran, and Don Beaupre, the young kid. Beaupre's numbers in the playoffs are kind of nasty to look at. But Beaupre had a decent career. Meloche had a very good career. Meloche, and again, this isn't a team made up of guys who I think belong in the Hall of Fame. The only Hall of Famer is Dino Ciccarelli. You might be able to argue Bobby Smith based on total points, but the first question you hear when you talk about how many points Bobby Smith scored is, yeah, but how many games did it take him to get there? That's the question I've always been asked about Smith. Hartsburg didn't play at that level long enough. Obviously, McAdam, Young, Payne, McCarthy, none of these guys are at that level. But this was a fun team to watch. And they were an underdog, and they made me a Minnesota fan on the spot. Because one question that I get asked a lot, well, why do you cheer for Vancouver, Boston, and Dallas? My cheering for Dallas starts with Minnesota. It all starts here. It starts in 1981. The first year I watched the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't remember watching any of the rest of the playoffs. I may have. I remember Vancouver getting swept by Buffalo in the first round, and I remember being kind of like, oh, okay, because, you know, Canucks are the team I'm supposed to cheer for, and they got destroyed by Buffalo. This is Gilbert Perreault and the French connection, right? But Minnesota became a team I gravitated to pretty quick after that. So, there you go. My first Stanley Cup finalist video. They didn't win it, but they were a fun team to watch, and they were part of the reason that I became the hockey guy who's standing out here on a hot day with the Portman Bridge over his shoulder and blackberries as far as the eye can see.
Lot of blackberries.
And talking to you people on a Saturday with Yvonne, the camera person, not cameraman, camera person.
I can be a cameraman. Man is short for human, so it's
okay,
not a sexist
sure.
term. But,
all right,
you know.
that's fine then. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And this is the first of another series. And again, I understand if people are like, well, why talk about the Stanley Cup finalists? Because that's how these stories get told. Everybody remembers a winner. Nobody remembers the loser. This guy remembers the losers because I've cheered for a lot of them. And from a Canuck fan, that means something. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you again. And out.